The elevator chimed softly as it arrived at the top floor, breaking the stillness of the building just shy of midnight. Nathan Clark, founder of a rising edtech startup in London, stepped out into the dim corridor. A gray overcoat draped over his shoulders, a leather briefcase in hand. He hadn't planned on returning to the office this late, 11:47 p.m. to be exact, but a crucial contract due first thing in the morning was still tucked away in his desk drawer. The entire building was nearly swallowed in darkness. Motion-sensitive lights glowed faintly against the marble floors. The cleaning staff should have finished hours ago. Aside from the night security downstairs, this place was supposed to be empty. But as Nathan neared his corner office, tucked away at the far end of the corridor, a strange sound made him stop cold. Whispering, urgent, and a soft, stifled sob, the unmistakable sound of a child crying. He frowned, stepping closer to the frosted glass of his office door, straining to hear. "Don't cry, Noor. Mama said we have to be strong." "I'm tired, Amira. My hands hurt from scrubbing." Nathan's heart clenched. That could be children. Could it? His hand trembled slightly as he reached for the doorknob. He pushed the door open, and what he saw inside would change the course of his life forever. Two young girls knelt on the polished wooden floor of Nathan's office, their small figures barely illuminated by the dim hallway light. They wore oversized clothes that hung off their slender frames like hand-me-downs. Their dark hair was tied into messy buns, and their small hands were raw and red from exposure to cleaning chemicals. One of them was scrubbing a corner of the floor with a cloth, while the other leaned over a bucket, dipping a stiff brush. Neither looked older than 10. Nathan stood frozen for a moment, his heart thumping in shock. He cleared his throat gently. The girls startled and turned to him, wide brown eyes filled with fear like animals cornered in the dark. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice sharper than intended. "Why are you here at this hour?" They scrambled to their feet, wiping their wet hands on their pants. One of them clutched a rag tightly, as if it were a shield. The other stepped protectively in front of her younger sister. "Please don't fire our mum," the older one said softly, voice trembling. "She's sick, but she didn't want to lose her job. We know how to clean. We promise we won't mess anything up." Nathan could barely process what he was hearing. His briefcase slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a thud. He took a slow breath. "What are your names?" "I'm Amira," the older one said, still shielding her sister. "This is Noor. We're 9, almost 10 next month." "And your mother's name?" "Leila Rahimi," Amira replied. "She's been working in this building for 2 years. She always says you're a kind man, because you leave thank you notes sometimes." Nathan blinked. He remembered those notes. He'd started writing them after noticing how spotless his office always was. He'd never met Leila in person, but he'd always appreciated her work. But now, instead of the quiet woman who'd kept his office pristine, he was facing her children, doing her job in the dead of night. "You shouldn't be here alone," he said gently. "This isn't work for children." "About we need the money," Noor whispered, barely audible. "Mom's medicine costs a lot, and rent is due next week." Nathan felt something crack inside his chest. He'd grown up poor. He remembered the hunger, the fear, the long nights watching his mother push herself beyond exhaustion. The scene in front of him felt painfully familiar. "How did you get in?" "Mom gave us her access card," Amira said. "She trained us really well, showed us which chemicals to use, how to empty trash, how to clean properly. We've been coming with her on weekends to practice." Nathan turned slowly, looking around his office, the polished desk, the spotless floor, the faint scent of lemon cleaner in the air. And 2 little girls had taken all of this upon themselves so their mother wouldn't lose her job. "Have you eaten dinner?" he asked, after a long pause. Both girls shook their heads. "Mom made soup," Amira said. "Vegetable, we'll eat when we get home." It was nearly midnight. "When do you usually finish?" "Around 2 a.m., Noor replied. "Then we take the bus home and sleep a few hours before school." Nathan knelt down beside them, his heart growing heavier with each word. Children working 6-hour shifts, then heading to school like nothing happened. "Sit down," he said gently, pointing to the chairs in front of his desk. "I just want to talk." They hesitated, uncertain, then slowly sat down. Nathan walked to his mini fridge, pulled out 2 juice bottles and some crackers he kept for late nights. Nathan didn't speak for a long time. He simply sat there, quietly watching the 2 girls eat crackers with tiny, trembling hands. Every time Amira brought the juice bottle to her lips, she glanced at him, cautious, wary, as if expecting him to yell or kick them out at any moment. But he wasn't angry, he only felt a cold ache blooming in his chest, a chill he hadn't felt in years, one he thought he had buried long ago. He had once been that child. Calloused hands, an empty stomach, sitting quietly in strange offices while his mother worked. His mum had been a laundress. His father had walked out when Nathan was 6. His childhood was made of winter nights without heat, mornings with nothing but dry bread and weak tea. He remembered crouching in the corner of the laundromat, trying to finish homework amidst the roar of machines because his mother couldn't leave him alone at home. He knew what it meant to survive while pretending everything was okay. And now these 2 little girls were doing the same, enduring, sacrificing, quietly holding up their world while their mother fought to keep going. Nathan lowered his head, swallowing the knot in his throat, refusing to let the wave of emotion drown him. But something inside him shifted. It wasn't just sympathy. It was a silent promise. No matter what happened, he would not let these girls keep trading their childhood for survival, like he once had. He said, "Here, eat something," he said softly. "Then I'll take you home." After the 2 children finished eating, Nathan didn't hesitate for a second. He packed up the leftover snacks, helped the girls into their coats, and gently took their hands as they walked out of the building. The London night was bitterly cold, but his heart burned, not with anger, but with a deep, unfamiliar ache. He didn't know what he'd find behind the door where their mother lay sick, but one thing had become clear. He had to meet the woman who had raised these extraordinary girls. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of an aging building in East London, where the stair railings rusted, the signs had faded, and the walls wore decades of grime. But when Amira whispered 3rd floor, flat 3B, Nathan noticed something different. A small plant on the balcony, childish chalk drawings near the doorstep, faint signs of life and of hope. When they knocked, a weak voice called from inside. "Amira, is that you, darling?" "Yes, Mum. Don't worry. Someone came with us," Amira answered gently. The door opened a crack. A woman stood there in a worn robe, her long hair tied loosely, her forehead glistening with sweat. But the moment she saw Nathan, she instinctively stepped between him and her daughters like a shield. Her voice was faint, but her eyes held fire. "Who are you?" Before Nathan could answer, Noor peeked out and said quickly, "Mama, this is Mr. Nathan. He owns the office we cleaned. He's not mad. He's nice." Leila swayed. Nathan instinctively stepped forward, steadying her, her shoulder burning hot beneath his hand. I'm sorry," Leila whispered. "I know they shouldn't have been there. I'll pay for anything they damaged. Just, please don't call the police." "No one's calling the police," Nathan said gently, guiding her toward the chair near the window. "But you're burning up." The apartment was small but spotless. A tiny dining table, a bookshelf lined with a few classics, a rattling old fridge, and children's artwork taped lovingly to the cupboards. Nathan felt it in his bones. This wasn't just a space, it was a home, a hard-earned one. He turned to Leila. "When was the last time you saw a doctor?" Leila chuckled weakly. "I can't afford one, Mr. Nathan. I figured it was just the flu. It'll pass." "This isn't the flu. You're running a high fever. Could be pneumonia." "I can't miss work. If Mr. Johnson finds out I sent my children to clean instead of me, he'll fire me or call child services." She turned her face away, her voice falling. "I haven't missed a single shift in 2 years, but this week I just couldn't keep going." Nathan sat across from her, eyes searching hers. He lowered his voice. I'm not here to judge. I just want to understand. Leila, how long has life been like this for you? She was silent for a long time. The girls were on the floor, coloring quietly. Almost 10 years, she said. I used to be a literature teacher in Aleppo, Syria. But the war took everything. My husband disappeared in an airstrike, and I fled with the girls. They were barely one. We crossed into Turkey, then the UK, refugee status. Nathan's voice softened. Why cleaning? My qualifications didn't transfer. I applied everywhere. No one hired me. So I cleaned. Night shifts, double shifts. Sometimes I felt ashamed, but I was more afraid of my daughters going hungry. She coughed violently, her whole body shaking. Nathan stepped closer, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. You've done everything and more. Leila pressed her lips together, looking at her girls. I just want them to go to school, to live normal lives, but medicine costs money, rent goes up. I couldn't afford to fall, so I taught them to clean. I know it was wrong, but I had no choice. Silence filled the room. Nathan clenched his hands. In that moment, he was no longer a tech founder. He was a child again, seeing his own mother in this woman's face. Leila, he said softly, I want to help you, but first you need to see a doctor, tonight. Leila stared at him. No pleading, no suspicion, just exhaustion and pride. Why are you being so kind to us? Nathan paused, then said barely above a whisper, because I was once the son of a mother like you. That evening, after the doctor had left and Leila had taken her first dose of antibiotics, Nathan stayed behind, seated on the small chair by the window. His eyes drifted to the two girls sleeping soundly on a thin mattress in the middle of the room. He turned to Leila, now resting against a pillow, her eyes shadowed but more alert, and spoke gently. Leila, I'd like to offer full scholarships for Amira and Noor. The learning center I work with has a special program for immigrant children. I can personally ensure their admission. Leila sat up suddenly, coughing softly from the effort. No, thank you, but I can't accept that. I don't want my daughters to be someone's charity case or feel like they owe anyone. Nathan understood. He had seen that look before, in the mirror, years ago. The pride of someone who had carried the world alone for too long. It didn't lower easily. This isn't charity. It's what your daughters deserve. Leila fell silent, her eyes drifting to the sleeping girls, their small faces still marked by fatigue. Amira turned in her sleep and murmured, Mama, I want to go to school. Leila raised her hand to her face, trying to hold back tears. She says that every night, she whispered. I promised, but I was never sure I could make it happen. A tiny voice came from the shadows. Mama, please say yes. It was Noor. She was still awake. I want to learn. I want you to get better. Leila bowed her head, tears finally spilling silently down her cheeks. All right, but only if I can work, to give back in my own way. Nathan nodded, his voice warm and honest. I wouldn't expect anything less, and I believe you will. No one spoke after that. But in that quiet moment, something new was born, soft, steady, and full of hope. 3 weeks later, Leila stepped through the front doors of Future Steps, the education center Nathan had poured his heart into for years. It stood in an old brick building, morning sunlight streaming through tall windows, casting golden patterns across polished wooden floors and vibrant hand-painted murals on the walls. She wore a crisp white blouse and neatly ironed slacks, slightly worn but clean. Though still recovering from her illness, she walked tall, eyes steadier than before. No longer the desperate mother, but a woman reclaiming her strength. Nathan greeted her in the front lobby, holding a coffee and a clipboard. Welcome to your first day, he smiled. Ready to be the boss? Leila laughed, the first real laugh in weeks. As long as you don't expect me to go easy on your staff. Her new role was operations coordinator, overseeing the support team, scheduling classes, working with students and immigrant parents. It wasn't cleaning work. It was work that built futures for children like Amira and Noor. The girls began classes that same week. Amira quickly won over her teacher with vivid storytelling in her writing. Noor stunned everyone with her art, bold colors and surprising depth for her age. After class, they often waited in Leila's office. Some afternoons, Nathan would drop by with croissants or juice, sitting cross-legged on the floor, helping with homework. One day, while he was shading in a giant rainbow with Noor, Amira leaned closer and asked, "Mr. Nathan, do you have a family?" He nodded slowly. "I used to. My mom. But now, it's just me." "Then, can you be friends with our family?" Amira asked, her eyes bright. "You don't need papers, just come to dinner." Nathan didn't answer right away. He simply smiled, and something warm stirred inside him. And so the dinners began. Spaghetti, lemon chicken, sautéed greens. Leila always cooked enough for an unexpected guest, and Nathan always showed up, by coincidence, with fruit, art supplies, or a story to tell. At first it was a habit, then it became essential. Leila, once cautious, kept her distance. But slowly, that space softened. Because each time Nathan sat at their table, he wasn't just the man who had helped them. He was becoming part of their world. One quiet night, after the girls had gone to bed, Leila and Nathan sat on the apartment's small balcony. Streetlights spilled through the window, distant traffic humming like background music. "You know something?" Leila said softly. "I didn't think I'd laugh again, not this soon." Nathan turned to her, his gaze gentle. "Maybe I didn't help you," he said. "Maybe you helped me." She tilted her head. "Helped you with what?" "Remembering what matters most," he said. "Not success, not status, but moments like this, simple, real. Those warm breakfasts, the quiet afternoons filled with drawing and homework. What once seemed like ordinary moments slowly began forming something unnamed." Nathan started noticing the smallest things, like how Leila always pushed the larger portion of meat onto her daughter's plates, claiming she was trying to eat lighter, how she lined Amira's books in the order of her class schedule, or how she gently patted Noor's shoulder every time the little one grew frustrated over coloring outside the lines. He'd met strong women before, brilliant, accomplished, ambitious, but none like Leila, a woman who could manage dinner, teach her kids, and show up to work again after an illness that would have broken most. To Nathan, Leila wasn't a woman who needed saving. She was a woman who made you want to stay. One rainy afternoon, Leila handed him a spare coat in the lobby of the center. They stood by the window, watching raindrops streak down the glass. Neither spoke. But in that silence, his heart slowed just a little. Then there were the accidental glances, when he tied Noor's shoelaces, when she cut Amira's chicken into tiny bites. There were no grand confessions, no loud declarations, just gestures, small and constant, sinking quietly into the heart like water into stone. And Nathan knew he wasn't showing up just for the center anymore, or out of duty. He was coming for something else, for someone. And Leila, though she hadn't said a word, her eyes had softened too, less guarded, more tender, as if for the first time in years, she was beginning to believe someone might actually stay. Rumors traveled faster than truth. Just a few weeks after Leila started working at the center, one of Future Step's longtime board members, Mr. McMillan, a cold, conservative figure, sent an email directly to Nathan. The subject line was curt. "Who is she?" The message was short, but it sent a chill down Nathan's spine. "I hear you've grown unusually close to a former janitor. Don't forget the public image of the company. Don't let personal feelings compromise the collective reputation." Days later, Nathan was summoned to an urgent board meeting. In the grand conference room, surrounded by familiar faces wearing unfamiliar expressions, he felt as though he were on trial. "We understand your fondness for staff," one board member began, "but a personal relationship with an immigrant who was once our janitor, it puts the organization at risk. The press could seize on this. You're jeopardizing our credibility." Nathan said nothing, his fists clenched under the table. Another voice chimed in. "If you wish to remain CEO, we suggest you maintain professional boundaries. Otherwise, we'll be forced to reevaluate your position." Leila found out days later. No one had to tell her. The shift in how people looked at her said enough. The hesitation in greetings, the whispers behind doors. That evening, when Nathan came by for dinner as usual, she didn't answer the first knock, or the second, or the third. Finally, she opened the door slightly, her eyes tired. "You shouldn't come here anymore," she said quietly. "I don't want to be the reason you lose everything." Nathan stepped in, gently closing the door behind him. "Don't say that." "Isn't it true?" Leila turned away, folding her arms. "They'll never accept me. They'll use my past against you. I've lived through that kind of judgment my whole life, but I won't let you become collateral damage because of me." "You don't have to carry this alone," he said, voice low but firm. She looked at him for a long moment. "You could lose everything. Your reputation, your company, everything you built. For someone like me." "It's not for you," Nathan replied, stepping closer. "It's for what I believe is right." Leila stepped back, eyes glassy. "I'm sorry, but I can't let you make that sacrifice. I'm not worth it." And in that moment, Nathan realized the greatest love isn't built on promises, but on the courage to stand in the storm, even when it demands everything. Summer rain pounded the streets of London, sidewalks slick with water, headlights glimmering like ghostly lanterns in the mist. Nathan walked through the halls of the Future Steps headquarters for what he knew would be the final time. Each step felt heavier than the last, not with regret, but with certainty. The boardroom was brightly lit, yet cold in every sense. Every board member was already seated, faces stony. No greetings, no welcome. Mr. McMillan started, calm and sharp. "You have two choices, Nathan. Remain CEO under one condition, end your relationship with the former janitor, whose background, let's say, is problematic, or I walk away." Nathan finished the sentence with unwavering calm. A heavy silence fell. Some exchanged glances. One person opened his mouth, but Nathan was already laying down a folder. "My resignation and transfer of shares," he said. "No negotiations, no clauses." McMillan raised an eyebrow, a dry smirk tugging at his lips. "You're giving all this up for a woman?" "No," Nathan replied, voice deep and clear. "I'm choosing to keep myself." He stood tall, adjusting his soaked collar. "I built this place on the belief that education and human dignity go hand in hand. If that belief is no longer shared, then this is no longer the Future Steps I believed in." He bowed his head slightly, turned, and walked out, lighter than he'd felt in years. The rain hadn't stopped when Nathan arrived at Leila's door. His shirt clung to his back, his shoes squished with each step. But he didn't care. In his hand was a small velvet box, dark blue. As he waited, Nathan thought of his mother. The tired hands, the silence, the strength that never asked for thanks. He thought of the boy he used to be, who had nothing but still dreamed of being enough for someone. Leila opened the door after the third knock. She froze at the sight of him, soaked, trembling, but eyes glowing with something she hadn't seen in him before. Liberation. "You did it," she whispered. "I resigned," Nathan said simply. "No CEO, no shares, no image to protect." Leila's face fell, pain crossing her features. "You shouldn't have done that for me." "No," he stepped forward, locking eyes with her. "I did it for me, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid to feel what was real." He knelt down. No fireworks, no sparkling diamonds, just a silver ring. Plain, imperfect, bought in the rain. But it burned with a single truth: faith. "Leila Rahimi," he said softly, "life has given us 100 reasons to build walls, to guard ourselves, to stop believing. But you taught me that love doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. I have nothing left right now except a heart that doesn't want to go anywhere but here. Will you marry me?" Leila didn't speak. For a moment, the world stopped. Tears streamed silently down her face. She clutched her chest, right where her heart trembled, like a child finally being given what she never dared ask for. "You think I'm brave enough to love again?" she whispered. "No," Nathan smiled, still kneeling. "I think you're brave enough to be loved, without having to fight for it." She dropped to her knees, arms wrapping around him as rain pounded the windows behind them. "Yes," she whispered, "and I don't want to go anywhere else but here." In the days that followed, nothing grand happened. No headlines, no applause. But for Nathan and Leila, everything changed. 1 year later, the small apartment on the 3rd floor no longer felt like a temporary refuge. It had become a true home. The walls were repainted a warm beige, tiny hanging plants lined the window, lovingly cared for by Noor. The old dining table was replaced with a bigger one, large enough for 4 and often more when friends dropped by. Amira had just won first prize in a citywide writing contest. Her story was titled, "The Man Who Brought His Heart Home." Noor, meanwhile, was preparing for her first art exhibit at the local community center, a collection titled Life After the Refugee Dream. Leila was now officially the deputy director of the newly relaunched Future Steps, co-ended by her and Nathan, this time with a clearer mission, not just to teach knowledge, but to restore dignity. And Nathan? He no longer attended board meetings or sat in sleek corner offices, but every morning he woke up early to make breakfast with Leila, walked the girls to school, and spent his afternoons teaching life skills to newly arrived immigrant students. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was real and full. That evening, the kitchen smelled of warm-baked bread. Leila leaned her head on Nathan's shoulder as he washed dishes. The radio played a soft jazz tune. A golden glow lit the family photo on the fridge, every face smiling. "Do you remember the night we first met?" Leila whispered. "I remember," Nathan nodded. "I thought I was looking for a contract, but I found the rest of my life." Leila took his hand. No more words needed. Because sometimes a new beginning doesn't start with fireworks. It starts with a quiet yes, a simple dinner, an embrace at the end of a long day, and the unspoken promise. Whatever comes, we'll walk it together. Nathan stood at the doorway of the Saturday morning community class, watching children race around the tables, hands stained with paint and laughter echoing like sunlight. Leila was helping a group of parents learn how to teach English at home. Noor carefully mixed watercolor paints for the little ones, while Amira sat beside her father, writing the first lines of a new poem for the Healing Through Words workshop. Nathan smiled, lowering himself into the seat beside his daughter, gently adjusting her sheet of paper. "What's your poem about today, Amira?" "Home," she said quietly. "Not the brick kind, but the kind where someone's waiting for you." Nathan paused. His heart slowed, as if each of her words touched the deepest, most hidden parts of him. Once, his life had been measured in numbers, growth charts, margins, rankings, but now, waking each day to see the 3 girls he loved smiling, thriving, and being fully themselves, that was beyond measure. He opened his notebook and scribbled a line. "The greatest wealth isn't found in account balances, it's in the lives we touch." That afternoon, the whole family ran a soft skills workshop for recently arrived immigrant kids. Leila led the session, Nathan told stories, Amira recited her poem, and Noor painted a giant mural to hang at the center of the room. 4 figures holding hands beneath a home, drawn in dreamy watercolor strokes. A shy girl raised her hand and asked, "Mr. Nathan, who are you to Miss Leila?" He crouched down and smiled gently. "I'm the one she chose to walk all the way home with." Their family wasn't perfect. They had known loss, hunger, and the edge of falling apart. But that was exactly why every moment together now felt honest, raw, and full of grace. And for Nathan, that was the greatest legacy he could ever leave behind.